In the autumn of 1888, the streets of London's Whitechapel district became the hunting grounds for one of history's most infamous killers. Jack the Ripper, as he would later be known, brutally murdered at least 5 women, leaving a trail of terror, mystery, and unanswered questions that endure to this day. Today, we'll explore the chilling case of Jack the Ripper, examining the gruesome murders, the investigation that captivated Victorian England, and the endless theories surrounding the identity of one of the world's most notorious serial killers. Whitechapel, a poor and overcrowded district in London's East End, was a place of despair in the late 19th century. Its streets were filled with poverty, crime, and a transient population struggling to survive. For many women, prostitution was one of the few ways to earn a living, making them vulnerable targets. Jack the Ripper's known victims were impoverished women, most of whom were involved in prostitution. These women, including Mary Ann Nichols, Annie Chapman, Elizabeth Stride, Catherine Eddowes, and Mary Jane Kelly, lived on the fringes of society. Their brutal murders not only shocked the public, but also highlighted the social issues plaguing London's East End. The late 19th century was a time of social upheaval in England, particularly in London's working-class neighbourhoods. The Ripper murders not only exposed the squalor of Whitechapel, but also drew attention to the growing divide between the rich and poor, turning the killings into a national sensation. The first confirmed Ripper victim, Mary Ann Nichols, was discovered in the early hours of August 31st, 1888. Her body was found on Bucks Row with her throat deeply slashed and her abdomen mutilated. The level of violence suggested a frenzied and deliberate attack, setting the tone for the horrors to follow. Just over a week later, the body of Annie Chapman was found in a yard off Hanbury Street. Like Nichols, her throat had been slashed and her body mutilated. However, Chapman's injuries were even more severe. Her uterus had been removed, suggesting that the killer had a knowledge of human anatomy, sparking rumors that the Ripper might be a surgeon or butcher. On the night of September 30th, 2 women were murdered within hours of each other. Elizabeth Stride's body was found with a single cut to her throat, but no further mutilation, leading some to believe that the Ripper may have been interrupted. Later that night, Catherine Eddowes was discovered in Mitre Square. Her mutilations were far more severe, with her face disfigured and her internal organs removed and displayed at the scene. The Ripper's reign of terror seemingly ended with the horrific murder of Mary Jane Kelly. Unlike the previous victims, Kelly was killed indoors in her own room. Her body was found dismembered and mutilated beyond recognition, her face hacked beyond recognition, and her organs scattered around the room. The brutality of this final murder left a deep psychological scar on the public. The investigation into the Ripper murders was led by the Metropolitan Police and the City of London Police. Despite the best efforts of detectives, including Inspector Frederick Aberline, the police were overwhelmed by the lack of forensic technology and the sheer number of leads. Witnesses provided conflicting descriptions, and the dark, fog-filled streets of Whitechapel offered the killer ample opportunity to strike without being seen. The Ripper's ability to evade capture highlighted the limitations of 19th century policing. There was no DNA testing, no fingerprinting, and no reliable way to collect or analyze blood evidence. The case was further complicated by the frenzy of false leads and public hysteria, as well as the media's sensationalist reporting, which often hindered the investigation. Several letters, supposedly from Jack the Ripper, were sent to the police and local newspapers during the murders. The most famous of these was the Dear Boss letter, which coined the name Jack the Ripper, and the From Hell letter, which was accompanied by half a human kidney, supposedly from one of the victims. While many of these letters were likely hoaxes, they fueled the public's fear and fascination with the case. Despite extensive interviews and questioning of numerous suspects, the police were unable to identify the Ripper. Witness descriptions varied, with some describing a well-dressed gentleman and others a disheveled, lower-class figure. The lack of consistency in witness reports made it difficult to develop a clear profile of the killer. Given the precision of the mutilations, some investigators believed that Jack the Ripper had medical training, possibly as a surgeon or butcher. This theory was fueled by the removal of internal organs in several of the victims, suggesting anatomical knowledge. Some contemporary doctors even proposed that the killer could have been an experienced surgeon. One of the most sensational theories involves Prince Albert Victor, the grandson of Queen Victoria. Conspiracy theorists have long speculated that the prince, due to his mental instability or involvement with a secret affair, could have been Jack the Ripper, with the murders covered up by the royal family. However, historians largely discredit this theory, as Prince Albert had strong alibis for the nights of the murders. A more credible suspect was Montague John Druitt, a barrister and teacher whose body was found in the Thames shortly after the last murder. Druitt's family believed he was mentally unstable, and his death coincided with the end of the Ripper killings, leading some to speculate that he may have been the killer. However, no solid evidence links him to the crimes. In recent years, Polish immigrant Aaron Kosminski has emerged as a prime suspect. Kosminski, a mentally ill barber who lived near the murder sites, was named as a suspect by police at the time. In 2014, forensic analysis of a shawl found near Catherine Edauer's body suggested a DNA match with Kosminski's descendants, though the results have been heavily disputed. Despite the passage of more than a century, interest in the Jack the Ripper case has never waned. With advancements in forensic science, new technologies like DNA testing have offered some hope of uncovering the Ripper's identity. However, many experts believe that after so many years, any definitive evidence may be lost to history. The mystery of Jack the Ripper continues to captivate true crime enthusiasts, historians, and conspiracy theorists. Books, documentaries, films, and even walking tours of Whitechapel keep the legend alive, feeding the fascination with one of history's greatest unsolved mysteries. The case of Jack the Ripper endures as one of the most chilling and perplexing in criminal history. His brutal murders, taunting letters, and the police's inability to capture him left a permanent mark on Victorian London, and his identity remains a mystery more than 130 years later. What are your thoughts on the Jack the Ripper case? Do you believe any of the suspects are credible, or do you think the true identity of the killer will remain unknown? Share your insights and theories in the comments below. If you found this deep dive into one of history's darkest chapters fascinating, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to stay updated on our latest true crime investigations. Join us next time as we explore the controversial case of the West Memphis Three teenagers convicted of a horrific crime, but were they truly guilty, or was it a miscarriage of justice? Find out in our next episode.